Hi, my name is Bonnie Mueller, and I'm a part of Ferry's team in Philadelphia. This is the first of several videos that we designed to help you understand the framework of underlying social motives. Because motives have such a strong impact on behavior, it's important to understand those motives that affect how you can manage and perform in both your work and personal lives. The motives most relevant to work are referred to as the three social motives. In these videos, you'll learn about why motives are important, their definitions, and how they impact your job performance. Through the series, our intent is to help you understand what motives are, and also to be able to articulate the three social motives and the thoughts and concerns associated with each. We'll walk you through how we measure motives. We'll also introduce values and describe how they differ and relate to motives. And finally, we'll present different approaches to managing motives when they're not leading to desired outcomes. In this first video, I'm going to walk you through an overview of the three social motives, including the history, the research, what they are, and why they're important. So you may already be wondering, why do people behave the way they do? In some ways, the answer to this question is really quite simple. A person's behavior at any given time is a function of only two things: some characteristic of the person in interaction with some characteristic of the situation at hand. And this basic principle of human behavior can be shown in the formula that you see here that looks like this. Behavior is a function of the person times the situation. Of course, there are a lot of different personal characteristics that influence what we do. Skills, knowledge, the brand you project, self-image, values, traits, and all the way at the bottom, these motives. These various characteristics exist at different levels of consciousness. Perhaps you've seen this model before, because thinking about these characteristics like the levels of an iceberg is actually a great way to illustrate the areas that we're about to cover. The most conscious characteristics are those above the waterline, on the visible tip of the iceberg. These are the things that are easy for others to see, like skills and expertise, things that you can easily find on a resume, for example. The characteristics that are less conscious are below the water. They're the part of the iceberg that we can't see from the surface. And these are the things that may take longer for people to learn about us, like our personality, what's important to us, what gives us energy. Notice that even though we can't see them, they make up the majority of the iceberg. So let's take a deeper dive into each of these different layers or characteristics. At the tip of the iceberg, above the waterline, we have things like skills and knowledge. Skills are the things a person knows how to do well. For example, reading a profit and loss statement. Knowledge is what a person knows about a particular substantive area. For example, basic accounting principles. They're what are easiest to see. We can look at a person's LinkedIn profile or ask them in an interview to know what they are. They're necessary characteristics for success in a job, but they're often not adequate by themselves. As we go below the waterline, we'll get into the characteristics that are more difficult to see, and these are the things that are more personal. As we go deeper in the water, the characteristics become harder to see, and they also are more innate to a person and therefore more difficult to develop the further down you go. So let's take a look. The brand you project is the image a person projects to others, the outer self. For example, being a leader or a follower. Self-image is the way a person sees himself or herself, the inner self or the internal concept of identity. For example, seeing yourself as a teacher or a leader. Self-image may not be aligned with the image others see. For example, a strong technical expert might get promoted to a manager, and while their team sees them as a leader, they may still see themselves as a technical expert and find it hard to pull away from the responsibilities that let them feed that self-image. It might take some time for this individual to shift their self-image from the expert to the leader. Both the external brand a person projects and their self-image might impact a person's values, what he or she believes is important. When we talk about values here, we're referring to the beliefs a person holds about what is important. For example, doing one's best could be important to them, or having friends might be important to somebody else. As we go deeper, we get into traits. Traits are the relatively enduring characteristics of a person. It can be either cognitive or psychosocial, for example, being a good listener or being able to recognize patterns across seemingly unrelated elements. They can also be physical, like having stamina or high energy. It might take us a while to learn what someone else's traits are. These are characteristics that are fairly stable and therefore harder to develop. At the deepest level, we find motives, what intrinsically energizes and drives us. For example, continuously wanting to exceed a standard of excellence and make things better, or perhaps wanting to influence or have an impact on others. Let me ask you this. When I say the word motive, what comes to your mind? What does it mean to you? Maybe you think of criminal intent, something that drives you, something that's important to you, a stimulus to act, impulse, incentive to do something. All of these are accurate interpretations of the word motive, but in these videos, we're going to define motives in a very specific way. What we mean by motive is an ongoing need, want, or concern of which you are usually not conscious. Motives predispose you to perceive and think about people and situations that you encounter in certain consistent and predictable ways. This in turn leads you to behave in ways that are consistent with those motives. Every motive is marked by a strong desire to reach a certain kind of goal, or more precisely, a certain goal state, which is less tangible. A goal state is the feeling of satisfaction you get upon reaching a particular goal. Without the goal state, goal attainment in and of itself would lose its meaning and its attraction. Because a goal state is so satisfying, you attempt or are motivated to reach it over and over again. And therefore, the motive, the drive to achieve the goal state, is recurrent and stimulated repeatedly whenever a situation provides an opportunity for reaching that goal state. You can almost think of it like hunger. I wake up in the morning, I feel hungry, so I eat breakfast and my hunger is satisfied. But after a few hours, the need to satisfy my hunger returns. This goal state of being full continues to recur, even after it's been satisfied, so I continue to seek ways to satisfy it again and again. You're probably already beginning to see how motives can influence our behavior in different ways, and how they also might impact or affect our long-term actions and choices. We naturally engage in or gravitate to the kinds of behaviors that we find intrinsically satisfying. And by naturally engage, I mean that you may or may not even be conscious that you're doing it. So you gravitate towards them even if no one is telling you to do so. Meeting the needs just naturally give us a sense of satisfaction and energize us, so we keep repeating that behavior. In fact, the behaviors actually give us pleasure. We enjoy them. So we start to see patterns of behavior that relate to their underlying motives. Let's look at some examples. A marathon runner who completes several marathons a year because he or she enjoys the runner's high. A politician who starts out in local politics and then works up into a regional or national position. A person who loves recreational activities with friends and participates in a community bowling league, softball league, or book club. They like to be around other people and foster those affiliated relationships. A teacher who enjoys helping their students and having an impact on society as an educator. A motive not only drives behavior by influencing your thoughts, but it also selects and directs behavior. It influences what you focus on and how you see the world around you. In doing so, it determines the nature of the situations in which you choose to engage. And once you've engaged in a situation, your underlying motivation will also determine how you will react to the stimuli there. Although the researchers have documented over 50 different motives, through the research of Dr. David McClellan and his associates at McBurn Company, now Ferry, we focus in on 3 primary social motives. David's 1949 theory of social motivation states that there are 3 social motives that collectively explain the widest range of human social behaviors. And they are the need for achievement, the need for affiliation, and the need for power. And while David referred to this as power, we know the connotation of power can sometimes bring negative feelings, so you can also think of it as influence. You're going to learn more about motive profiles in a later video, but I'm going to start by saying that the best motive profile is your own. It's your self-awareness of it and how much you match your behavior to the situation in support of or in spite of your motive profile that matters. The intent in looking at these motives and building your self-awareness is to help you leverage and manage your motives to optimize your performance as an individual, as well as to understand the motives of others to better lead or to work with them. This is where we begin to get into the concepts behind the 3 social motives. Instead of just taking you through a description of each, I want to invite you to join my colleagues for a special tour of the 3 social motives. When you're ready to proceed, you can move on to the next video where we'll move on to take a look at the 3 social motives in more detail. Have fun, and I hope you learn everything that you possibly can to help and to support your performance as a leader. Take care.